Examples of these statements include our expectations regarding future growth, including our 2022 outlook, capital allocation, and future operating performance as well. Our expectation regarding the financing plan for the for others financial and operation performance is also forward-looking, and the company is not required to provide an update regarding those circumstances. It is also my pleasure to introduce our board of directors who are joining us today for the call. We have our CEO, Mr. Theodorus Ardi Hartoko, our CFO, Mr. Ian Sigit Kurniawan, our COO, Mr. Pratikno Arif Budiman, our CBO, Ms. Nur Hayati Chandrasuci, and also our CIO, Mr. Hendra Purnama. So without further ado, let me hand over to Pak Teddy for the opening remarks. Pak Toddy, the floor is yours, Pak.
Thank you, Christine. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our second quarter 2022 earnings call results today. I'm Theodorus Ardi Hartoko, CEO of PT Daya Mitra Telekomunikasi Tbk or Mitratel, together with the rest of the board members. Allow me to start today's call with a few remarks before handing it over to our CIO for a more detailed presentation. Our second quarter results are in line with our expectations. We continue our positive growth trends across the board. Our top line grew by 15% year-on-year to 3.7 trillion rupiah compared to 3.2 trillion rupiah last year. EBITDA is recorded at 2.9 trillion rupiah, 17% growth year-on-year, representing a 77.5% margin. Net income is booked at 892 billion rupiah, 27% growth compared to last year. Tower owned is recorded at 28,787 sites with 24% year-on-year growth, and tenancies are recorded at 43,900 tenants with a 20% year-on-year growth. Our new business initiative on fibers achieved sizable orders at 8,080 kilometer work orders or actual demands as of 2Q 22. We are also planning to complete the acquisition of 6,000 towers acquisition from Telkomsel by 3Q 22. The towers acquisition is expected to be a landmark deal that will seal our position as the largest tower company in the region. With the inorganic acquisition on progress, and we hope to finalize soon, we will revise up our forecast for the year from 10 to 11% revenue growth to 12%, and for EBITDA from 13% to 15% growth, with 14 trillion capex to be deployed. This concludes my remarks. I will now hand over to Pak Hendra, our CIO, to deliver the rest of the presentation. Please, Pak Hendra.
Okay, thank you, Pak Teddy. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending the call. Maybe we can continue with the presentation with the slide. I guess Pak Teddy also already mentioned some of the information, so I guess it makes me weaker to present to you our number. Okay, go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the highlight of Mitratel. Basically, we are one of the SOE that listed last year, and at that time it was one of the largest IPO, especially for SOE. Mitratel not only have the high visibility in terms of the revenue, but we also have a significant potential growth in the future. We do have an excellent rating from Pevindo, which is a AAA, the highest rating for Indonesia. And we also already included in several index, either is FTSE, Global Equity, IDX 80, etc. Okay. In terms of the financial, for the last 5 years, we have a CAGR revenue of 14%. We have a CAGR number of tower of 26%. We also have a Telkomsel as our anchor, which is which is the largest MNO in Indonesia with a market share about 48%. Our uniqueness is actually we are not only one of the largest, but we also the widest in Indonesia, where 58% of our tower located outside Java Island. Okay, next. Okay, so this is the current ownership of Mitratel. Telkom is the founder and also the largest shareholder, which about 72%. The remaining 28% is mainly public, but on that public, there's also INA, which is Indonesia SWF, closely to 6%, and also GIC, about 5.7%. On top of that, there's another SWF, which is ADIA and ADGF, which is close to 5% each. Okay, next slide. Okay. Okay, the first is actually the outlook in the tower industry. If you see, there's actually many consolidation happen this year. As we already mentioned when during the IPO, this is actually happening now, and because of the participant from the foreign investor or the foreign tower operator, then the consolidation become more massive in Indonesia. So this is the list of the acquisition that done in 2021 and 2022. Besides the consolidation, the demand for the tower in Indonesia is still huge. Okay, one of the reasons is the data payload. As until 2026, the CAGR will around 21%. 5G penetration is also expected to be high. We are expecting by 2025, 27% of the mobile subscriber will be using 5G. IoT device, as of now, still quite low. But then, as of 2025, the number is expected to be more than 500 million. So there's actually a huge potential for the tower, either to co-location or also build to suit. And last thing is with this 5G, then more and more tower operator, especially the big tower operator in Indonesia, transform themselves into an infraco. While the remaining small tower operator, they don't have the enough capex to actually expand, then they become basically the target for the consolidation. Okay? When becoming a digital infraco company, that means that the potential business, for example, the backup energy generation and supply, fiber optic, DES utilization, and also edge computing. So there's still a massive need of the digital infraco in Indonesia with the introduction of 5G. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the global market. I believe I mentioned this before last year. So in summary, Indonesia is still one of the unique location for the tower operator, because Indonesia is actually the market leader for the highest ROIC globally. It also a long-term revenue because the contract mainly 10 years or above with the minimum potential of default risk. In terms of the EBITDA, it's also one of the highest in the world, and also the barrier to entry for to building the tower or entering into tower business is actually quite high, especially with the local regulation. In terms of the potential growth, is also still significant. Indonesia is one of the country in the region that has the high number of users for each tower. So it's about 2,000 person for each tower. Okay, next slide. Okay. Just to give you a comparison between MTEL and the other tower operator in Indonesia. So for the last 5 years, especially start in 2017, where at that time MTEL still also focused to cater Telkomsel as a part of the group. Then starting 2018, where MTEL started to open up and then to improve the co-location. So in terms of the revenue itself, the CAGR for the last 5 years, we actually close to 14%, which is still highest compared to the other tower operator. In terms of EBITDA, also the same, we actually improved quite significant, close to 29%. This is also far massive compared to the other competitor in Indonesia. Same case with the net income. In terms of the number of tower, we also grew about 26%. And in terms of the number of tenants, so even though our number of tenants is still relatively low compared to other, but then we have grown quite aggressive at 34% CAGR for the last 5 years. The tenancy ratio also has been improved for 6%. This is also highest compared to other tower operator in Indonesia. Where for example, in 2017, our tenancy ratio is still at 1.1, while the other tower operator is already at 1.7. So with this kind of growth, we believe we can catch up with the other tower operator by sometime in the next couple of years. Okay, next. Okay. This is our tenancy ratio. So as of now, if we exclude the acquisition, then our tenancy ratio is still at 1.71. But with the newest acquisition that we did, especially in 2021, then our tenancy ratio has been improved from 1.51 at the end of last year to 1.52 as of first semester 2021. Okay. This to indicate that our co-location, especially located outside Java, has been attracting many MNO to actually become a colo with us. Next slide. Okay, if you see here, this is more or less the number of towers that we own in every island in Indonesia. As we mentioned before, that many operators is actually trying to expand outside Java Island. So as of now, the number one co-location for our tower is actually located in Sumatra Selatan or South Sumatra. So which is actually the highest co-location for the other compared to other location. And then the number two is actually in mid of Sumatra, and number three is actually in Bali and Nusa Tenggara. So those the three provinces who actually have the highest growth of co-location within our tower. Okay. So this is actually in line with what we already mentioned before, that all of the MNO is actually trying to expand the coverage, especially outside Java Island. Okay, in terms of the number of tower, we actually increased about 24%, and the co-location has been increased 14%. Tenant year on year improved by 20%, and the reseller is down 29%. Is because we acquire those tower that belong to Telkom in August last year. Okay, next slide. In terms of the performance, our revenue has improved to 15%. Also EBITDA 17% and net income at 27%. Our EBITDA margin also has been improved to 77.5%, and also net income margin has been improved to close to 24%. The main driver for the improvement in terms of the revenue, EBITDA, and net income is actually the acquisition that we did last year. Okay, in terms of the tower itself, we actually built about 581 tower, and for the new tenant, we acquired about 1,306. For fiber optic, we already have massively get the mandate for 8,000 kilometer. So for just within 6 months, we are able to get the mandate for quite a significant amount due to our aggressive marketing and also our team capability to actually trying to build the infrastructure for the connection. As we know, this fiber optic become the backbone for especially for the 5G. Next slide. Okay, for the revenue, we like before, we split it into 3 category. The tower leasing model is the revenue contribution is actually improved to 80%. So year on year, it's actually increased 17%. The contribution also come from the tower acquisition and also the tower that we just built. And the EBITDA margin also quite good, is actually at 85%. Reseller, as I mentioned, the number is actually down. The contribution to only 9% from 11 last year is because we acquired the tower, and now the business is actually become a tower leasing model. Tower related business is actually we receive more order coming in, and as of now, the contribution to the revenue is at 11%. In terms of the margin for the tower related, it's actually been improved at to 13.7 for EBITDA margin. This is actually better compared to previous year, where the EBITDA margin for the tower related is actually only a single digit. Okay, so but the tower leasing EBITDA margin is still high, but since the tower related business still on the teens or 14 in this case, then it still drag down our consolidated EBITDA margin to around 77%. Okay, well, in the future, as we planned before, we're going to be more selective and be more focused for the business that has a higher EBITDA margin, such as small cell and fiber optic. Okay. Okay. So this is the revenue. So more than 84% of our revenue is actually come from tier 1 MNO in Indonesia, which is they have a very strong balance sheet and also have a very strong presence in Indonesia. In terms of the anchor tenant, as I already mentioned, is still Telkomsel, which is the largest, and they also have the widest network coverage. They cover about 96% of Indonesia population. For the backlog revenue, we do have a strong CAGR of around 26% 26% since 2018. Okay? And this is actually contributing again by all of these tier 1 MNO in Indonesia. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of the expenses, I think this is a self-explanatory. I think it's you can see directly in the text that the increase of the expenses is actually followed by the increase of the revenue. In terms of the detail of the expenses itself, the planning and operation tower, even though our tower business has been improved 15%, the planning and operation and maintenance of the tower still only increased 1%. So in other words, that we are able to reduce our maintenance and operation costs. For the construction and project management, year on year is increased 41%. This is because the revenue from the other or tower related model has been improved quite significant. So this is basically the cost for that revenue. I think the other is not nothing that is significant. Maybe also can add that in terms of the O&M for the tower in last year is about 1.7 million rupiah per tower. In this first semester, we are able to reduce the operation and maintenance cost to around 1.4 million rupiah per month. Okay, next slide. Okay, so for the balance sheet itself, especially in terms of the cost, we are able to reduce our cost of fund from 5.4 last year to 5.25 this year. This is basically we negotiate with all of the bank to profiling our loan. Some of them we converted from floating into a fixed loan, and some of them we actually negotiate to actually have a lower spread. As of now, on average, is still JIBOR plus 1.5. Okay. For the debt profile itself, the majority, as you see, majority of our loan is still long term. About 43% is actually will mature more than 3 years, and we actually have a relationship with the local bank, SOE bank, or even the global or regional bank in Indonesia. Okay. In terms of the leverage, as of now, we are still low because of the proceeds that we received from the IPO. But our policy try to in the future is actually try to maintain it not higher than 4 times for the net debt to EBITDA. It's because if we have a higher than 5 of net debt to EBITDA, then the cost of fund will increase. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is our mid-retail portfolio highlight. So this year we are continue to focus on the organic and also domestic inorganic. So this year we are going to focus on that in terms of the tower. Fiber optic, we are capturing the demand as of now. That's why we have quite a high growth in terms of the fiber optic. Edge infra solution, we also already have like a proven concept where we also have a 2 pilot project together with Telkom and Telkomsel. Project solution and managed service is something, a new service that we are improving this year to actually have a better or higher margin compared to the previous year. And we also planning to introduce power to tower solution to our MNO, especially to the area which is off-grid. Okay, next slide. Okay, So this is the guidance for 2022. We did some adjustment based on the current market condition, especially with the consolidation in the M&O level, where it is impacting in the industry, but longer than what we expected before. However, in terms of the growth itself, we are actually still quite optimistic. And then in terms of the growth, we also trying to improve it to actually improve our the shareholder value. In terms of the revenue, we changed it from 10 to 11 to 12%. EBITDA increase, we also increase it to 15%. And for CapEx, because we're going to be more aggressive this year, and we have a feasible, good pipeline for the acquisition, so we increase our CapEx to 14%. Hopefully, within the next couple of days, we can announce you on the update on the acquisition, especially the big acquisition that's going to close soon. For the co-location, this is something that we are adjusting because of the market condition. So now we are targeting 2,500. For the inorganic, this one is we are still optimistic, and we improve the number from 750 to 1,000 of organic or building a new tower. Inorganic or acquisition, we also adjust and then improve it from 3,000 to 6,000 this year. So in the beginning, we have like a plan of 6,000 to acquire 6,000 tower within the next 2 years. So 3,000 each year. Now we believe that we are able to actually conclude the 6,000 within 1 year. Okay. For fiber optic, as I mentioned, that we already have about 8,000 kilometers of demand, and then we are still constructing most of the fiber optic. But by this year, we are targeting that we are able to construct 9,000 kilometers of fiber optic. Okay. With this slide is actually I conclude our presentation. Maybe I can hand over to Christy for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Pak Hendra. Thank you, Pak Teddy, for the comprehensive explanation. I will now open the floor for Q&A. Please raise your hand, and I will call out your name, and please unmute yourself. First question is coming from Arthur Pineda of Citi. Arthur, please unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Several questions, please. Firstly, on the CapEx, you've mentioned that you're raising it to 14 trillion this year with the 6,000 forwarded into this year. Does this mean then we should assume that FY23 should see a significant drop-off in terms of CapEx because you're just moving it from 23 to 22? Second question I had is with regard to the change in guidance. If you can help me understand the math here. You've mentioned September target deal closure, which will effectively raise your capacity by nearly 20%. Why just a 1% bump up on the revenues if that's the case? If you prorate that, shouldn't this be a lot larger? Last question I had was with regard to the lockup on the shareholders. Obviously, your competitors have been doing a lot of deals with regard to potential placements and all. I'm just wondering, now that the lockup with Telkom is done, is there any discussion on potentially taking any strategic investors in so that we can actually get a better appreciation on the value? Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur. Okay, and on first question is the CapEx use, Pak Hendra.
Okay, for the CapEx, yes, we increase it this year. For next year, we actually haven't discussed it yet. I think we will see because most of the CapEx is actually come from the M&A activity. So if we're able to acquire 6,000, then I guess the consolidation in locally will mainly already finish because all of the available tower has been acquired. So then we probably will adjust our CapEx for next year.
Understood.
Okay.
Second questions is on the change in guidance, right, Arthur?
Yes, if you can help us understand the math there.
Okay.
Sure.
So, sorry. Okay. For the revenue itself, because for example, most of the tower that we acquire is actually will finish the transaction in the third or fourth quarter. So in terms of the revenue, it's not going to be a full 1 year revenue. It's only like for the last 2 or 3 month revenue. That's why the contribution will probably not significant. Also, the other thing that is quite significant is the building of new tower. It's about our target this year is 1,000 tower. But then to build the tower is also takes time. Okay, so some of the tower, the demand is actually also happen in the first and second quarter, and most of it will actually finish by third or fourth quarter. That's why the improvement in terms of the revenue is also not that significant.
I understand the timing issue and that it's some of it is just going to be booked for a certain number of months this year, but the bump up is big, right? 20%. Even if I prorate that, and even if I adjust for differences in tenancies, I would have thought that the bump up would be much higher than just 1%, even if I prorate with tenancies and on time for 2 or 3 months.
Okay, so basically one thing that is actually improved the significant to the revenue, especially the co-location, which at the current time, the co-location, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this year we're targeting about 2,500, but as of first semester, we have about 1,300. So that number is not actually quite significant compared to our, it's about half from what our target. Maybe Iwa, if you have something to add in terms of this increase in terms of the revenue.
So basically, the 1% increase on our revised guidance is mostly because the additional acquisition that will be held on third quarter or fourth quarter. So basically, in the previous guidance, we already include 3,000 of acquisition that will be also happen on the third quarter. So basically, the 1% increase is only come from 3,000 additional more based on the latest agreement with the tower owner that will be happen in third quarter or fourth quarter. Yeah, thank you, Pak Indra.
Arthur, I hope that answer your questions. If you have any more questions, I think we can take it offline.
Sorry, the third one on the
lockup period, shareholders period. Yes.
Okay. So there hasn't any discussion on that one. So at the current time, there's no changes. So we just BAU.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks. Second question is coming from Hussein Safei. It's from UBS, right?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks everyone, and good afternoon. Just a few questions from me. First, following up on Arthur's question on the guidance, means I also find that the guidance is highly conservative given the first half momentum and given the upcoming acquisitions. So just want to understand that. Are there any big renewals coming up where we may not have certainty or clarity in terms of renewals or the rentals, which is leading to the softer guidance? That's question number one. Second question is on the growth or the orders coming from operators. So just want to understand how it is building up, which is the operator which is adding more tenancies, and in terms of order pipeline by operator, if you can provide, that would be helpful. Sure. And finally, on the Indosat and Hutch merger, any color on their side, like any discussion with them in terms of their demand for relocation or such thing like that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the question, Hussein. I think the first question is still asking about the, if I'm not mistaken, you're asking about the renewal. For this year, the renewal is about 4,575 contract that will expire this year, and by June is actually 2,159 contract that expire, and we basically already success to renew 95% of the contract. The remaining 5%, the contract is renewed basically because of the change in the local government, because the location is no longer permitted to build a tower. But also another thing that is quite massive is actually because it's a combat. Combat means it's a temporary tower, so then the contract will collapse when the permanent tower is already being built. I think that's the first question. And in terms of the tenant that is actually adding, so as of now, as of June, we basically have about majority, about 45% is actually from Telkomsel. Okay, and Excel is about 26%. IO is about 22%. The remaining is basically others. That's the composition of the new co-location or new tenant. Okay, and if you ask us about the what happened on the MNO consolidation, so as of now, as I mentioned, we did receive an order for IO, but then the order is not significant enough. Usually, IO is actually the second after Telkomsel who give us or the order for the co-location or build to suit. They actually plan hoping that the internal consolidation will probably finish at the end of third quarter or in the fourth quarter. Okay. And the tower or the device that actually overlap in our tower is less than 5%. And from the 5%, we actually discussed to do a co-location for about 10% from that number. So since the overlapping is not that significant, then the co-location is also will not be that difficult because we have a huge tower that actually available for them to do a co-location. So this is a lot more easy compared to the other tower operator where the overlap location can be as high as 7,000 tower.
Understood. This is very helpful. Just one follow up on the renewals. So you renewed 2,000 and almost 2,200 towers or the tenancies. What about the rest of the tenancies? Are the discussions ongoing or it has already been finalized? Okay. And if you can help me on the rentals as well, at what rentals these renewals are taking place?
Okay. So is it on the remaining is still ongoing. Hopefully, we can give you another information on that in the next couple of days. But also, it's actually in a good progress, if I may say. Okay. And in terms of the revenue per tenant, we also still remain the same. Is 12.4 million rupiah.
And this is the number, or this is the rate at which you are renewing the towers as well.
Sorry. Right? This is the average monthly rate for this year. So basically, with that average, more or less, we are giving the rate quite the same in 2021.
Understood. This is very clear. Thank you very much, Pak.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Hussein. I have a question on the chat box from Stefan Bocher of Viera. He's asking on the dividend policy this year. I think this year, Stefan, the dividend policy will remain as our IPO guidance, which is maximum of 7%, as we are still continuing the consolidation. If if there's a question on the floor, please raise your hand and also feel free to chat me. Arthur, you have a follow-up question? Please.
Yeah, sorry, it's again on the dividend. I understand this year you're keeping it at IPO commitment levels, but assuming you acquire all of the towers this year and you're done for 2023, is there room for you to actually raise your policy beyond what's stated at the moment? What would be the comfortable gearing level for you? Maybe that's another way to look at it.
Okay, so probably if we are able to do all the consolidation this year, we're going to relook again in terms of the dividend policy. There's actually a potential if we to change it or to make it higher, because we already basically done all the consolidation. But we don't know the number yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur. We have also another question on the chat box from Jun Leong. New Silk Road. The question is why the guidance for colocation is down, but build to suit is up. What's driving the change? Pak Hendra, if you want to answer the question.
Okay, thank you. For the build to suit, I guess there's actually a huge demand for the area that is not covered or isolated. So I think it's already mentioned in the Indonesia government that there's still quite, I think about like more than 20,000 village that is not actually covered by signal or communication. So that's something that the government forced to MNO to actually improve their coverage. So we are helping all of these MNO to build a tower in that remote location. Okay. Second, in the Indosat, also they made one of the requirements to merge and for the government to approve it is actually for them to improve the coverage to about 11.4 thousand new coverage. So there's actually another potential for co-location. So, but then, as I mentioned, because of this, Indosat is actually still consolidating. So then the demand for this co-location is actually not there yet as of first semester. But then we are hoping that they can finalize the internal consolidation. Then the expectation or the order that we receive for co-location will increase. As I mentioned, usually Indosat is actually the number 2 in terms of the MNO who give the order. But for this year, as of now, they are still number 3 because of the consolidation. Hope that answer the question.
Thanks, Pak Hendra. If there's any more question on the floor, please feel free to raise your hands and unmute yourself, or to put the question on the chat box. At the moment, there are no questions yet, Pak Hendra.
Okay.
Actually, one question is coming from Henry Teja. Henry, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Christy. Hi, Pak Hendra. Just 2 follow-up questions. Actually, I would like to follow up on the Hosseini's question. On the renewal side, Pak, would you mind to share once again, Pak, on the renewals detail? I think I lost. I got some problem on my connection. And would you mind to share, Pak, more details? Which operator drives the bulk of the renewal, Pak? And in terms of the sites overlap for IOH, Pak, just want to make sure once again, across those 5% overlap sites, Mitratel will help IOH to relocate 10% of it, Pak. Is it true? Am I correct or not? And do you mind to tell us whether the sites relocation will be on the will be using the existing sites of Mitratel, or will it trigger Mitratel to build a new site, Pak?
Okay, so I a bit missed on the last question, but let me answer the first one. The first question. Okay, for the contract that is expired, so mainly this is contract that has been in 10 years. So it's actually 2012. At that time, most of the tenant is still Telkomsel. So majority the contract that is expired is actually Telkomsel, And in terms of the lease rate, our average revenue per tenant still remain the same, like December 2021, which is 12.4. So we maintain those rate, and then for the sell and leaseback, there's also still no change because we haven't closed any acquisition yet at the current time. And maybe Christy, I think I a bit missed on the second question.
Yeah, Henry, can you repeat the second question because your connection is a little bit breaking up?
Okay, sure. Pak, on the sites overlap between the Indosat Urido and Hutchison, Pak, just correct me if I'm wrong. So basically, there is some kind of less than 10% less than 5% of the overlap sites between the Indosat Urido and also Hutchison. So just curious, so how many potential sites relocation out of those 5% that Mitratel will do, and will this kind of sites relocation will be using the existing asset or existing sites of Mitratel, or will it trigger Mitratel to build a new sites in order to help IOH to relocate it?
Okay, so yeah, as of now, yes, correct. Only less than 5% that is actually overlapping. And from that 5%, only about 10% that we're going to relocate. And at the current time, because we are actually have a lot of tower that is still available for Indosat and Hutch, then most likely it's not going to be built to suit, but it's going to be a co-location. Is that answer the question, Henry?
Yes, Pak. Clear. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Henry. So we actually have another question from Fraser Smith from Cohen and Steers. Fraser asked, the slowdown, do you think the operators are slowing down their expansion and this will lead to lower co-location guidance? And is the tower co-location from IOH more of a timing issue or more of a demand issue?
Okay. We believe this is more like a timing issue because, as I mentioned, IOH is actually been asked by the government to adding 11.4 thousand new coverage. So it means that they have an obligation to the government to meet that to improve the coverage. But then I guess we believe that this is more like a timing issue because they haven't finalized the discussion. Maybe because of the overlapping with the other tower operator is so huge, then they need to have quite a bit of more difficult discussion. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons for why the order for the new tower, for the new co-location or new build to suit is not out yet. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that the potential of the or the need for the tower is actually still quite huge, especially because of demand from the data, or especially come from the potential use of 5G also. Okay.
All right, hope that answered your question, Frasers. Next, we have a follow-up question from Hussein. Hussein, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks once again. Just this time on fiber side. So this 8,000 kilometers of fiber orders which Mitratel has got so far. Just want to check how much of it was booked into first half. What was the revenues, fiber revenues which was booked into first half, and where these revenues are booked? It is in the tower leasing business, or is it part of tower related or others business?
Okay. So first thing is actually there's two type how we recognize the revenue from the fiber optic. Is this a bundle service? Then it will come with the tower leasing revenue. But if it's a separate or it's a dark fiber, then it's going to consider as the tower related revenue. Okay? From the 8,000, I think we already finished about 2,000 kilometer, and then the revenue, I think maybe Iwa can help me if you remember the number, what is our target revenue for the fiber optic?
Yeah, so basically the order itself is already comes to MTEL in the second quarter. So mostly the revenue itself will be booked in the end of the third quarter. So as Pak Hendra has already mentioned previously, the number of the revenue itself will not significant in this years. So we are targeting around 15 to 20 billion in this year only, Pak Hendra. Back to you, Pak Hendra.
Thank you.
Also, Hussein, for the fiber optics, we need about 4 months to establish the connection. That's why the booking of the revenue is probably not as significant as you will expect it for the full year, which we will experience next year.
Understood. Very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hussein. At the moment, there are no questions from the floor. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or put it on the chat box for me to read to the management. We still have about 5 minutes before we have to end the call. Okay, there's a follow-up question from Jun Leong Pak, Ninsek Group. Can you talk about the levers for EBITDA margin and improvement and targets? What are the lease rate for new towers or co-location in this quarter?
Okay.
So first is about the EBITDA margin improvement and targets, Pak. And the lease rate for new towers and co-location is the second question.
Yeah, I think for the EBITDA margin, I think the improvement will also come from the efficiency. And on top of that, as I mentioned, we are targeting to acquire 6,000 and also 1,000 build to suit. So this is a new tower that come into the company, going to operate and managed by us. Since we already have a tower all over Indonesia, we're going to appoint them to designation vendor. Then basically the vendor in the same area, they can have more tower to operate and have a better economic of scale. So we're going to negotiate to them to actually reduce the cost and improve the efficiency. Okay? And in terms of what the next question is the lease rate. Yeah. The lease rate. So we are still targeting 12.4 million rupiah for the lease rate for this year, and build to suit or co-location, basically the same rate. And basically the only one that is different in the past is actually sell and lease back. The sell and lease back in the market is about 10 million rupiah.
Thanks, Pak Hendra. Jun Leong, I hope that answered your questions. I think there are no more questions. Okay, Jun Leong, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, hi Pak. Sorry, can I just clarify on this guidance about colo and build to suit? Is the weakness because your previous guidance on? I mean, it's kind of odd, right? Like your co-location expectations are a bit weaker this year. The build to suit's a bit stronger. Why is that demand not flowing into your existing towers? Like, is it areas that you do not cover? Yeah, because it's usually faster to scale up via co-location, right? So, yeah, can you just explain why the demand is not flowing to your other towers, which the co-location is not that high to begin with? And then the second part is just on co-location, the reduction in your expectations. Is that purely from IOH, or is there are you also expecting reduction from other telcos?
Okay, thank you, Jun Leong. For the higher number in build to suit, because the one that aggressively do a build to suit is Telkomsel. So the Telkomsel is the one that is actively expand the coverage, and in this case, you're right, as I mentioned before, that they're actually building the coverage in the isolated area, in the remote area. So there's basically no tower at that location, and we receive quite a big number of order to actually build a tower in this remote location. So this is something that is not be able to switch to the co-location, because all of this order is basically come to an area that is at the current time no coverage at all. And in terms of the colo, yes, at the current time the demand that is lagging is from the IOH. That's why I mentioned to you that in the past IOH usually number 2, but then now since Telkomsel, XL, and others is still they are still according with the pipeline. So then XL become number 2 because they still give us an order for the co-location.
Okay. When do you expect the other telcos other than Telkomsel to ramp up their orders?
The other telco, you mean IOH?
So IOH, XL,
Okay.
Smartfren, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. XL and Smartfren, they already give quite a good order to us. The only one that is lagging is the IOH. They mentioned to us that the consolidation probably will finish at the end of third quarter or maybe in the fourth quarter. So that's basically the info that we have at the current time.
Okay. Okay, got it. Can I clarify one more thing? So you mentioned IOH, the overlap between your Indosat and your Hut sites are 5%. These are 5% of your tenancies?
Yes.
Your total tenancies, right?
Total tower, yes.
Okay. Of which, of the 5%, 10% of those, so 0.5% of your total tenancies, these will be co-located?
Yes. Co-located to other towers.
Okay, so those will be relocated?
Relocated, correct.
Okay, and the remaining 4.5% of your tenancies exposure to the overlap, these would remain as they are?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Jin Long. Hussein, you have follow-up questions?
Yes, sorry, my questions are answered. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Everyone, I think I'm quite conscious of the time. We are closing into the 1 hour mark. Pak Hendra or Pak Teddy, if you have any closing remarks before we end the call.
Okay. Maybe I can give a closing remark. So I guess for us, our first semester result is, I think we are meeting our target. Actually, we are most of the number is actually above what we have been targeting. So this is actually a good progress for Mitratel, even though sometimes the market condition is not as conducive because of the consolidation in the MNO level. Okay. And then we also revise, it's actually to make the KPI for the management to be more challenging, because we actually deliver of what we mentioned in the first month this year. So we revise it into something that is more aggressive and can give a better value for the shareholder. Okay. And lastly, we probably going to have another announcement within the next several days, not long from now, especially within the inorganic activity that we are doing, that we been done in the last 7 months. Okay, I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hendra. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's call. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to investor.relations@mitratel.co.id by email, or you can chat me directly through WhatsApp. With that, this concludes the call for today. See you the next quarter. Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.